Bon dia a tothom. Benvinguts al lliurament del quart Premi Europeu Manuel Solà-Morales. Moltes gràcies per la vostra presència. Welcome everyone, those who are here and those who are far away by streaming. In a few minutes, we will know the failure of the Manuel Solà-Morales European Prize. Let me introduce a few words for those who blinked or who are meeting us for the first time. Every 2 years, the prize recognizes the best university research in the field of urbanism carried out by a student granted a PhD. This is already the 4 editions of the award that we started organizing 7 years ago in 2016-17. The COAC has received candidates from 17 universities of 13 European countries, despite the pandemics. It's a positive significance for us. Maybe we are creating a point of reference for those interested in the progress of research on urbanism at the European universities. For us, it's a way to continue our commitment to find out and share relevant contributions to urban culture. It's a way to carry on what Manuel started by launching Urbanismo Revista magazine in 1985. It was at that period, at the last of 80s, that the words, that expression, urban projects, began to become popular again. Already in the 1990s, I remember, Manuel proposed a master workshop with the argument, periphery as a project. So thinking the periphery as something that will be a new chance for projects. For many years, architects and professors from all over Europe had the opportunity to share their views here in Barcelona. The prize is born with the same curiosity and the same interest. Now we ask the jury to select the best works. In fact, each time the selected finalist is a reduced number of the best doctoral thesis candidates. The winner in each edition has the opportunity to see their work published in a book form in the Architects collection of the Arquia Foundation. But we, in the laboratory, published the summaries of the finalist works. It has a value as a way of drawing a sort of an overview of the research issues. DUR, also a digital magazine, takes the opportunity to read the abstracts of the finalists mentioned and also the winner. Now, this is the issue of this year's jury selection, chaired by Professor Vittorio Lampugnani, whom I want to thank for his presence here today, and also Professor Teresa Marat-Mendes, Professor Fernando Díaz-Pinés, and Professor Enric as members of the jury. Thank you very much. I acabo amb alguns agraïments. Abans de res, l'agraïment de la presència del director de la nostra escola, de l'Escola Tècnica Superior d'Arquitectura de Barcelona. També, al costat seu, els equips i els serveis de recerca de la nostra escola. La presència també entre nosaltres del vicerector d'Arquitectura de l'UPC, de la Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya. I està clar, de les institucions que des del començament han recolzat aquest projecte. L'àrea metropolitana de Barcelona, el Col·legi d'Arquitectes de Catalunya i la Fundació Arquia. I finalment, un reconeixement al professor Álvaro Clua, secretari del Premi, sempre tan diligent, al costat d'en Joan Martí, i el director del nostre Departament d'Urbanisme, el professor company en aquestes guerres, Carles Crosas. Gràcies.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Josep Parcerisa. 1 decade after Professor Solà-Morales passed away, his legacy remains extremely vivid for his enlightening thoughts and contributions, but also for his fully commitment with academia. Besides being the director of the Loop, Manuel Solà was in different stages and phases the head of the department and the dean of the school, setting the basis to integrate urbanism, teaching and research as a distinctive asset for the young architects at Barcelona School of Architecture. From the steering committee, we welcome the jury members. After the long list of acknowledgements from Josep Parcerisa, let us start with the verdict reading that will be done through 4 different voices, thanks to the presence of the 4 members of the jury. So first, I would like to give the floor to Enric Serra, professor at Barcelona School of Architecture, acting as the jury's secretary, who will read the introduction and will announce one of the awarded finalists. Please, Enric, take the stage. No, just here. We are sharing. So sorry. Well, the live thing. First, I would like to ask the representative of the sponsors just to take the stage also, to take one of the seats. So you will give the diplomas after each of the already mentioned.
Hello, everybody. The jury of the 4th Manuel de Solà-Morales European Prize 2023 was faced with a task that was arduous and exciting at the same time. To choose between 26 submitted doctoral theses that were all highly qualified. The remarkable scholarly level of the candidates made the choice difficult, but also rewarding. We, 4 jurors, agreed on several basic criteria to apply to the judgment. The relevance of the subject of the thesis to urban culture, the methodological rigor and consistency of the arguments, the formal accomplishment of the coherence and presentation of the research work, and innovation in the approach and the outcomes. Overall, we looked for the value of the contribution to the discipline of urban design, its history, theory, or practice. We subsequently read all the theses and gave them preliminary grades individually. These grades and the criteria agreed on the first place formed the basis of a thorough, open, sometimes passionate, but always extraordinarily collegial discussion, in which everyone defended their preference, but was ready to change them if convincing arguments were provided. Eventually, a preliminary decision about the finalists was made and controlled individually through repeated study of the work. This slightly modified our choice. We also considered that the typological and cultural diversity of the candidates should be reflected in the group of finalists. The verdict was made unanimously. It was a demanding, intense, instructive, humanly enriching, and quite wonderful experience that led to a result of which we are confident and also a little proud. We think that Manuel would have been quite happy with it too. After reading and discussing the thesis, the jury awarded the title of finalist 3 doctoral theses. Pablo Villalonga Munar, title, Encounters with Infrastructure. Supervisor, Cristina Jové i Fontanals, Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya. Pablo Villalonga doctoral thesis aims to gain a better understanding of the confrontation between consolidated urban fabrics and elevated linear infrastructures. This has been a classic confrontation since the beginning of the last century, when the principles of modernity and the fascination with the automobile proclaimed the relative autonomy of roads, with Le Corbusier as the apostle of a new hierarchy between roads and buildings. Many centuries before, the water supply in cities had already highlighted the imposing presence of aqueducts, and their independence derived only from the building technique and their exclusive function. The research is supported by abundant fieldwork and a judicially integrated bibliography. Gradually, the initial appearance of a catalog takes the form of a thesis. The definition of meeting points between infrastructure and ordinary fabrics goes beyond the evidence of the contrast of scales and the eventualities due to change. A keen eye for surrounding movements and usual visual relationships, the epic of construction and the tendency to monumentalize infrastructure is all marinated with exquisite drawings that allow us to better understand the case studies and ultimately the urban problem. The work finally distills a classification of encounters that will undoubtedly be useful in future urban projects, with the aim of correcting morphological or functional conflicts. The case studies in which the infrastructure is the result of a real urban project, such as the Pont de Ronda, cited by the author, that is included as exemplary architecture in the urban complex, is yet to be developed. This thesis is not intended as a set of arguments given in an orderly way and culminating in definitive conclusions. Rather, it's an initial and worthy road full of forks that suggests new research in the permanent process of deciphering the mysteries of urbanity.
The diploma is given by Professor Felix Laguren, Dean of the ETSAB, and is collected by the author Pablo Villalonga. Congrats. Puedes sacar el diploma. Una foto, venga. Teacher. Professor Fernando Díaz-Pinés, professor at Valladolid School of Architecture, representing Arquia Fundación and member of the jury, will read the two subsequent finalists.
Thank you. Good morning. The first one is Elena Longin. The title is The Machine in the Mountain. The supervisor is Paola Vigano. Co-supervisor is Clara Oloris. The university is la Università UAV de Venezia. Elena Longin's work, entitled The Machine in the Mountain, provides a refreshing view of the intrinsic relation between the man-made environment and nature. The work aims to untangle the economic, social, and ecological processes and practices that form contemporary urban landscapes through an understanding of water's technological apparatus. The analysis is applied to the Veneto region, a territory strongly marked by the exploitation of water. Through this, Longin reveals the profound spatial transformations that have occurred in this territory due to the operation of diverse options for water control. Her work examines the political economic operations that have acted behind each water management option over the past century and discloses the spatiality of the operationalizing landscape of the Veneto region, which has resulted in the redesign of its ecology. Longin's interpretations of these power relations over the territory contribute to desiccating and visualizing the evolution of the metabolic relations between man, water, and nature. To achieve this, the work explores urbanism through the lens of an operationalized landscape and as a design tool that endorses new ways of seeing, working, and knowledge. Moreover, the thesis combines urban and landscape studies with urban political ecology, the science of technology, and environmental and society studies. Thus, this work, through its mapping process of an atlas systematizations, opens up new avenues on the power of the design tool to communicate the most complex problems that affect our habitats.
The diploma is given by Guim Costa, architect Guim Costa, Dean of the Col·legi d'Arquitectes de Catalunya, Union of the Architects, and it is collected by Elena Longin from Venice. Thank you very much. Just for the picture.
For the picture, so thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Next one is Carlos Verdaguer. The title is The City of the Three Ecologies, Elements for the Consolidation of the Ecological Paradigm in Urban and Territorial Planning. The supervisor is Agustín Hernández Aja, and the university is la Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. At a time that is increasingly distant from contemplation and thought, Carlos Verdaguer's thesis is an ambitious, holistic essay, an enlightened manifesto that proposes an intrinsically multidisciplinary ecosophy understood as operative wisdom, a courageous and honest device that seeks a reorganization of the place of life in common, an autopoietic utopia in search of the elements of a unitary theory of space. He confronts the complexity and unfathomable order of the simultaneous, knowing that all its variables cannot be optimized at the same time. Thus, he proposed the need to rethink in strongly ideological and critical terms, practical and speculative, ethical, political, and aesthetic aspects to address the global crisis. He proposed the need for a new holistic look at urban planning from the perspective of ecology. Within a framework inspired by what are these three ecologies, he reviews the progress paradigm and compares it with the ecological paradigm, whose conceptual maturity is not considered to be consolidated or influential in planning strategies. Through the citation of a solid bibliographical apparatus and by means of a dynamic Benjaminian method, intersectionality is established, from which a polyhedral transversal dialectic of a wide range of figures of social urban culture is established. Among these, some contributions stand out, those of Sennett, Debord, and Constant. Illich, Bateson, Morin, Maturana, or Georgescu Regen. And above all, Jacobs, Mumford, Alexander, or highlighted for his conception of the production of space, Henri Lefebvre. Through the hybridization of all these contributions and some others brought from other fields by Carlos himself, complementarities and joint readings with an insistence of the recurrence and coherence of the links, Carlos reveals objectives, premises, paths, and tools that are synthetically formulated. The thesis is developed in an open, refined literary language, avoiding the neologisms that are typical of academic abstraction and disciplinary specialization. Also noteworthy is the conscious and reflective absence of graphic elements that could contaminate or conspire against the ideas, whose clarity make it unnecessary to confirm the magnitude of the social and environmental crisis with figures and statistics.
The diploma is given by Jordi Ros, Vice Rector at UPC, and unlikely is not collected by the author, Carlos Verdaguer, from Madrid, who is absent for a last-minute cause majeure, but his close colleague, Isabel Vázquez, has traveled to Barcelona to receive the diploma. Thank you for coming. And we wish a quick recovery to Carlos. Okay, so still other two awards will be given this morning. First, Professor Teresa Marat-Mendes from Instituto Universitario de Lisboa will announce the special mention, only one, that is the runner-up of the 4th edition. Please, Teresa.
Thank you very much. So the jury has awarded a special mention to the following doctoral thesis: Díaz-Pinés work with the title Christian Democrats, Architecture and Capitalist Development in Post-War Italy, Società Generale Immobiliare, supervised by Professor Lorenz Stedler from the University of ETH of Zurich from the Institute for the History and Theory of Architecture. This doctoral thesis was written by Díaz-Pinés under the supervision of Lorenz Stedler at this institute, which I have just mentioned. In this period, between 1945 and 1965, the largest firm of this kind in Italy was founded in 1862 and since 1933 controlled by the Vatican. It was the main actor in the real estate business in Rome and in fact shaped the architecture of the Italian capital. It was deeply tied to Democrazia Cristiana, the leading political party, and used its political power cleverly and recklessly. It worked with important architects such like Luigi Moretti and Alberto Liberia and BBPR, but most of these projects were designed by an efficient in-house architecture office. Reconstructing the history of the corporation, the thesis reconstructs the history of the post-war Roman and Italian architecture from a new standpoint, considering political, ideological, social, economic, technological, and cultural influences, but focusing on real estate and the construction business. Documents that were available before were studied thoroughly and used intelligently. The result is a fascinating work that tells an old and apparently well-known story in a totally new but original and enlightening way, taking into account the pragmatic dimension of the city development. This is a truly innovative contribution to architectural and urban historiography. It is extremely well written and illustrated, and it is a fascinating piece of reading. Congratulations.
Unluckily, neither David Espina has been able to attend because another cause majeure, but the diploma will be sent punctually to Zurich. Thank you very much, Teresa. And finally, it's time to unveil the fourth European Prize Manuel de Solà-Morales that will be announced by the chairman of the jury, the Emeritus Professor Vittorio Lampugnani. Please, if you want to take the stage.
Thank you very much. Before I move on to the best part of this small ceremony, that is congratulating the winner, allow me just very briefly, just basically one personal remark on this jury. Enric has already mentioned the kind of work that we did, but on a very personal basis, I would like to say that when I was invited by Joan Busquets to do the job of the president of this jury, frankly, I was a little bit skeptical because I thought yet another academic exercise. There are so many, but then Joan is a very good friend. Manuel is, I would say, a very good friend. So I felt indebted and accepted, and I have to say I was highly rewarded for this courage that I had. It was really a fantastic experience. It wasn't because it was also a demanding experience. We had to read a lot, we had to discuss a lot, but it was also a privilege to do this reading and to do this discussion. I really think that this prize, if I may be very personal about it, is a fantastic contribution to the advancement of knowledge in urban design. And I really would like to congratulate you who are, who have invented this prize and are orchestrating it. It's really a fantastic thing. Personally, I learned a lot. I was stimulated to think in very different ways through our fantastic conversations. I think I've gained 3 new friends. I hope so. And I had some very wonderful imaginary conversations with my dear and very estimated friend Manuel de Solà-Morales. So this said, sorry for this. It was a little bit personal, but I wanted to do it. So now I have the privilege of announcing the winner of the 4th Manuel de Solà-Morales European Prize. The winner is Elisa Gallego-Picard. The title of her thesis is A Reading of an Atlantic Territory in Galicia. It was supervised by José Luis García Grinda at the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. Our assessment, Elisa Gallego offers us the triple reading of a piece of the Atlantic Galician territory formed from the sea, rains, rivers, and stones, constituent elements of this old landscape since men and women have lived in it. The descriptive reading precedes the historical one, and this culminates with a firm symbolic interpretation that converts emotional experience into an essential source of knowledge. Montepindo, the Jalas Waterfall, Carnota Beach, and Loro are only some of the singular components of a geographical area that has shaped its inhabitants and few settlements for centuries. Isolation and the memory of its myths have been its best protection until today. The author's refined maps, beautiful photographic images, and endless catalogues intend to compile an inventory of this totality, including the sounds of winds and the fickle clarity of its light. Bless her excesses that warn us of the risks inherent in recent transformations and prevent us from orders and rules that are only formulas that dwarf its identity to lock it into the cage of reification. This masterful reading reveals that a territory is much more than its landscape, its visual perception, and its analytical reduction derived from the curse system. The territory is the basis of everything that happens in it, and the best attitude towards it, respect and a certain poetic reason. Writing about the felt experience of a territory is very difficult. We believe, however, that this effort has given great pleasure to the author. Thank you, Elisa, for outlining a path of knowledge about territorial complexity with suttures the wound that divides reason from emotional intelligence. It is not difficult to imagine Elisa absorbed in the rugged Costa da Morte, like Siebel's fishermen, with the world behind them and the emptiness before them, trying to understand what seems incomprehensible.
The diploma is given by Loles Herrero, architect and urban planning coordinator at Barcelona metropolitan area, and is collected by Elisa Gallego Picard, that will not only collect the diploma, but also give a very short presentation on the awarded PhD.
I have written a few words to read because I'm a bit nervous. Okay, first of all, I would like to express my deepest thanks to the jury of this fourth call, the president, Professor Lampugnani, and the members, Professor Marat-Mendes, Díaz-Pinés, and Serra, for having recognized my research in the field of urbanism with this prize. It is an honor, and I'm thrilled. My thanks are also extended to all the organizations and the steering committee who is present here, who make this initiative possible, especially the members of the Barcelona Urbanism Laboratory, the Department of Urbanism and Regional Planning, the Barcelona School of Architecture, the Polytechnic University of Catalonia, the Arquia Foundation, the COAC, and the Metropolitan Area of Barcelona. There is not a word in this prize that leaves me indifferent. The initiative of giving it in the European framework with the objectives of support, the task of promoting and dissemination makes it a standout and makes it unique. And moreover, it honors the figure of Manuel de Solà-Morales, which represents a great responsibility. My research has been heterodox, and in the search for arguments to support it, among others, Solà-Morales' ideas with his defense of a holistic understanding of the territory and of its structures of sensible space at any scale was not only a stimulus at the beginning, when there are more uncertainties than certainties, but also a source to return to during the process of searching when you need to anchor intuitions with reasons. I spent 6 years preparing my thesis, 2 of them abroad on my international stay. It was a long and unfunded doctoral research. It was an extension of my professional work related to fishermen on that particular region of Galicia. The last of these works, of these professional works, the most extensive one, which was also the germ of the thesis, was, by unknown reasons, set aside and never saw the light. So I turned the administration's lack of interest into an opportunity, a sort of a chance to make a research with more freedom. It pushed me to build myself a rational framework to understand what ties us to a territory in a place which I also share values and a culture, and in a present dominated by the commercialization and consumption of territories, by a severe environmental crisis, and by the political dimension of the image. So in my understanding, I made room for the cultural and symbolic dimension, similar to those Solà-Morales structures of sensible space I mentioned before, to confront and to articulate them with the more rational or scientific dimension of the territory. To conclude, I don't want to forget to thank my thesis director, Professor José Luis García Grinda of the School of Architecture of Madrid, because with such a long search in time, one also creates links not only with territories, but with people. And of course, my father, Manuel Gallego-Jorreto, who figures as a mentor, but he played the role of a co-director. With his professional and teacher's experience in the field of urbanism at the School of Architecture of La Coruña, he guided me on the complexities of the territory, always from a critical point of view, always questioning, and always avoiding to be indulgent with what you perceive at first sight. So I know he, especially like many others, like my family and her friends, share with me my happiness for receiving this award. So thank you so much again.
Sí, per tancar un acte que diguéssim molt ben organitzat, algunes paraules, algunes reflexions. First of all, I think we have to repeat, the thanks to the jury work. This is very good because I think, as probably some of you are aware, we always consider that the jury is fully independent, not related with the school or not with the steering committee in a way, and then the jury is bringing a proposal in a way from the thesis that have been collected. I think that's very important because it's a system that allows us to create, every prize has a different jury in a way, and then you can see also the evolution of how the theses are moving from one field to another in a way. I think that could be somebody probably after 10 years, I hope, can make this the way that they are evolving in a way. Thanking also to the institution supporting the prize, because I think it's not easy to do that, and I think we can be very happy to have at least a fourth prize in this way. I think it means not only a certain stability, it means also the prize can be known and can be shared by people that they are engaging students to thesis, and I think that's very important because that creates a sort of tradition in a way that I think is when the things are becoming real and important in a way. And of course, among the sponsors been mentioned also the UPC, the department, also the area metropolitana, the COAC and Arquia. I'm very pleased to show you, and I think that is quite amazing. You are going to see now that is the previous edition. I think we like, and sometimes it's not possible, but when you see what has been the previous prize, and you can see also the evolution and the changes from one direction to another, means that also the jury makes different choices, probably. But I think also I appreciate very much, and I like to thank Arquia, the amount of care devoted into that to make this type of publication ready. I think I'm very pleased, and I think you are going to have it. I think for us it's good because it's the way the things are moving properly, but I think also apart from the pandemic period that it creates also certain troubles for many things, but still the things are going on the right direction. I like to just a few words because I feel also, I see, and I think Vittorio said before, the prize is representing something that is what happened in the urbanism. And it's true, that's the way, because the theses are the only exercise that somebody is doing completely out of any condition and making then a proposal to develop and then mentor by one or two directors, then he or she makes its own evolution. And in a precise moment where we can see that urbanism, architecture, urban design is in a very dramatic evolution, I would say. I don't like the word crisis, but it's an evolution, it's a very strong evolution. When our society is tackling new issues, to consider what probably we can start naming today, what we have to say the climate change wall, because that's the way we accept that, and we are building another wall. I think then probably the thesis is an excellent exercise for that, because the thesis for me has always, usually, and we can see today with this excellent presentation that Elena showed us now, that has a lot of realism, is showing real things that happen and they are making an interpretation of these things. But most of the theses are based on real histories, real realities like the ones that we have seen in Galicia. But at the same time, the theses are also allowing us to see the way of the possibles. What are the things can be different? And I think this is quite extraordinary, because in a way, in any thesis, you always can see that the things can be organized in a different way, a slightly different way. And there is no other place, I would say, that a thesis, because I mean, everybody, people doing the thesis, they are also engaged in professional work, but the professional work is always framed with certain conditions. But the thesis not, is the way. Then we can say that the thesis allows this idea of thinking the possible, thinking the future. And thinking the future because in our field, there is always this key word, the design project. Is the way. The idea of the project is what makes always, in most of these exercises, the thesis that have been presented, is sometimes is hidden, sometimes is more explicit, but I think this is very important. And I like to stress that and to encourage also the mentors of the thesis to push our candidates, our students, our doctorate to this field, the field of looking for realities, but also looking for the possible, what could be possible in this reality. And I think that is an important thing. And that means, and that is my last thought, that means that in some way the thesis has a certain capacity of what I like to call the utopianism, not utopia, utopianism. So it means, because utopia sometimes is being connected to some very strange period in the 20th century. But when we think this position, which tends to imagine that we want to see the things done in different ways, I think utopianism allows us to start thinking, to be, and to live in a different way. And I think this is the reason that I'm very much in favor of considering that the thesis allows us to look at for the possible, but to look also for different things and different contexts in the ones that we can create, like today we just mentioned already, new paradigms, new ways of looking to the future. Thank you very much to all the doctoral students, the mentors, the jury, and the people sponsoring the prize. Thanks a lot.
Well, after the closing words of Professor Joan Busquets, and with this very nice image of the 4 prizes, also very proud of the new harvest of 2023 with these 5 fantastic works that have been mentioned and awarded today. We just wanted again to thank you all the attendees. We would like to thank once again to all the staff team, staff in the Loop, Department of Urbanism, and Escola de Arquitectura and UPC, just to make possible the prize. Our special gratitude always to Rosa Feliu and Maria Solà for always giving support to this initiative. And of course, as Professor Busquets was mentioning, to all the candidates. At the end of the day, the prize belongs to all of them. It's time just to invite you to have a toast in the terraza of CODERC, and looking forward to see all of you in the next edition. Thank you very much.